Hi, I'm Harry Dent. I just wanted to talk with you about why you should listen to somebody like me now. We are at a very critical point. We have just seen the greatest, longest, and most artificial bubble in all of history. And I've studied all the bubbles in history. And its bursting will probably be the biggest thing that happens to investors, including you and people you know and your family and your business and everything in your lifetime in the next few years. I'm not the traditional economist, and that's why I see things that they don't. Okay, I studied accounting and finance in undergrad and then studied marketing and management at Harvard Business School. I studied everything about business and people, and that's what actually drives the economists instead of economic theories, which most of them have never worked. With new tools, starting in the early 80s, when I started managing small businesses and lecturing to small businesses around the world at Tech and Vistage, I was predicting way back then the greatest boom in history that would peak in late 2007. That precise. Why? I had my spending wave indicator back then, my first breakthrough indicator that just lagged the birth index adjusted for immigrants for 46-year predictable peak average spending in the average consumer. Very simple logic, and it worked out even better than I thought. Was the greatest boom in history, and it did peak in late 2007, and we went into this deep 2008-9 recession that started looking actually like 1930, which is what it really was until Ben Bernanke stepped in, who studied the Great Depression, and then the central bank started flooding the economy with money, government started running endless deficits, and now in the US alone, we've had $27 trillion of stimulus injected into the economy just to keep it at average growth rates. Now imagine what those growth rates would have been without, and I'm saying, yes, we would have had something more like the 1930s, a Great Depression, without all this stimulus. But the problem with this is they solved a major bubble burst like the Roaring '20s and what we've seen in more recent time by creating a bigger, longer bubble. And that's obviously not a good solution. And now this bubble has got to wind down. And yes, they may find a way to wind it down slower, but I've never seen a bubble burst slow in history. So I'm assuming when this bubble bursts, and I think it's likely in 2025 to 27, it's going to be brutal. Probably the biggest downturn we see in our lifetimes, okay? So don't listen to the experts that have been, most of them have been cheerleaders of all this money printing and taking the easy way out, and did not see the bubbles in the first place, in the great boom, and did not see that we were entering a Great Depression, and this is just superficial, something for nothing policies that can't possibly work that good long term. I'm independent and have concrete research proving for the first time in history, and I've been doing since the 1980s, proving that our economy is far more predictable than we've led to believe. New technologies cluster together every 45 and 90 years, and then they move into our economy in a predictable S-curve fashion, slower at first and then rapidly on its 10 to 90% penetration. New generations are expensive and inflationary at first as they're learning, and we have to invest in them and raise kids. And then they enter and cause great booms with falling inflation and prosperity, especially one the size of the baby boom that did drive the greatest boom in history from 1983 to 2007. So what I do that's different, and from my own unique research that took me years to pan out while I was working in the real world, strategic planning of new ventures, the very types of companies that were creating the new economy. So not only could I see how growth occurs, but I could see it happening and how it happens, okay? And so here's what I came up in my research. Consumers are the most predictable thing in our economy, okay? We enter the workforce on average at age 20. Now, some people 18 after college, high school, some 22 after college, and some like me after graduate school, okay? 20 on average. We will spend money like crazy raising our kids. We'll buy our first house, okay, in the early 30s. We'll buy our biggest house at 42. And we will spend the most money, the most important statistic I found, at age 46 at current times. And that's why the peak of the baby boom, the last major baby boomer at 61 peaked in late 2007, and why that boom turned down. And all this $27 trillion in stimulus has been required to cover over Generation X spending and less numbers and a slow economy otherwise. So this economic recovery since 2009 is not real. And it has created an even bigger bubble. And when bubbles burst, they're very hard to stop past a point. And they are always the worst crashes. So bubbles end badly. And we have not yet seen this second largest. And again, I can't stress, the first bubble in the 90s was just natural, really good times, and investors get over optimistic, okay? Same thing in the roaring 20s. Neither of those bubbles was caused by massive government stimulation in the economy, hyping it up beyond imagination, okay? So the second greatest, and again, to emphasize, the only everything bubble, every financial asset has bubbled. Even gold, okay, is going to have to come down to some degree, even though it'll be one of the better safe havens, okay? But everything has bubbled in this, and everything is going to crash. That means that normal asset allocation strategy, okay, we got you in this sector and that sector, small cap and large cap stock, some corporate bonds and some government bonds, and some gold and silver and commodities. Hey, those things work great most of the time. That's not going to work. Only the strongest metals like gold will hold up pretty well, and only the highest quality bonds will do well. The economy's just going to have to detox this giant bubble, all these overvalued assets, all these bad debts that have not been allowed to be flushed out by recessions. We haven't had a recession, really a real recession, except brief and COVID, which doesn't count in my calculation, since 2008, 2009, the longest in history, going on 15, 16 years. We've had a major recession every decade, okay? And recessions are not bad for the economy, they're healthy. The whole point is to have healthy booms, don't let debt and speculation get out of control, and then you can have healthy corrections, and the recessions quickly flush out the failed debts and the marginal companies, so the economy can just get healthier and meaner and leaner. That's how we prosper, booms and busts. So that's my campaign. The echo boomers, the millennials, are in their rising spending cycle from 2024 to 2037, but not flushing out this debt is going to compromise that. So instead, we're likely to see an off-cycle crash here that you need to protect yourself against. I mean, again, normal strategies are not going to be enough, okay? And then you have to be smart enough to reinvest aggressively for the rest of this millennial boom. And actually, it's going to last into the 2050s more broadly, especially around the world, led by the next China, India. India is going to be bigger than China in population and is rich or richer in the 4 decades that follows this. And your children will see a global boom, and they'll know where to invest just like you.